What's going on, everybody? My name's Jordan Fowler, and today I'm actually doing some photography work for a client. So I'm doing some product photos for a client that's in the automotive industry. So I've got some of their parts here. This is a pump of some kind, so I'm going to set this up and basically show you how I take some simple product photos on like a clean white background. So the first thing I've done is either end of the room I've got windows, big windows, so I've shut the blinds on these to kill the natural light that's coming in as best as possible, and I've actually turned off the main room lights. So now the only lighting in here are these studio lights. Now you don't actually have to use proper studio lights if you don't want to. Any sort of white light or LED will do the job. However, it is quite important to have some kind of softbox diffuser in front of the light. That's going to make it a much less harsh light, and it's going to spread that light out a lot more evenly, which is what we're going for. So obviously this is where I'm going to be shooting the photos. I've got my big nice white background there, which is just a clean white wall. And then I've got my big table here, which is going to have the products on down this end. Now this is actually a gloss white table rather than a matte white. I really like this because you're going to get almost like a kind of reflection underneath the product, which will show up on the gloss white, but not too much. It's not going to be like water reflection or anything. So that's quite a cool feature, but if you have a matte white surface, that'll do the job just as well. But if you have like a matte white surface, you're going to get more of kind of a floating feel to that picture, like the product is just floating on a white background. Whereas this is going to kind of look like it's sat on a table of some kind, because you will see a bit of reflection, but it won't be that obvious. Not 100% sure, if I'm honest, what this is or what it does, but we're not really too interested in that for this video. I'm just going to take some photos of it and show you how I would go about doing it. Now this product in particular actually has some kind of shiny metal surfaces on it, so the way that acts with the light is going to be quite interesting, so we're going to have to see how we can counter that to make it still look good. So as you can tell from the title of this video, we're going to be shooting this just using two lights. Now these are Fovitec Studio Pro 2500 watt lights, and I've got two of those. I've got one either side of the table that's sort of angled towards the back of the table, the wall obviously in background. With the wall being nice and big and white, that is basically going to work as a reflector, so the light is going to bounce off of the wall and come back onto the object, so it's going to light it from behind. So what I'm going to do now is get the camera set up on the table, get the product in place, and I'll switch over to the viewfinder so you can actually see what I'm seeing at the same time, and we'll go from there. Okay, so now we're set up with the camera on the table. I've got the tripod legs basically as low as they will go. So we've still got a little bit of height on the product, but not too much. Now the first thing we're going to notice is obviously this is quite dark and there's a lot of flicker going on to do with the shutter speed not tying up with the frequency of the lights. So the first thing we're going to do is drop that down a little bit, and there we go, the flicker's cut out. So we're on ISO 100, that's as low as I'm going to go for this, and 1/40th of a second is probably somewhere around where we want to be for this. Now the reason for doing this on a tripod is obviously because this is quite a low shutter speed. We don't want any movement in it to end up out of focus, so we're going to keep it on a tripod and keep it nice and still. You can use a remote to actually take a picture. I'm not going to, I'm just going to set here, I'm going to set a 2-second timer from when I press the shutter, so that'll take 2 seconds and then it'll take a photo. So right, we're going to zoom in here. I'm using a f4 24-70mm lens. So now this is zoomed right into 70 millimeters. So a quick look at the settings that I've got here. We're going to shoot in f8. That is plenty low enough for this kind of work. If we go too low, then the front of the product is going to be in focus and the back's not. And we obviously want the whole product to be in focus, so f8 is going to be fine for this one. ISO 100 is as low as we're going to drop the ISO, and we're going to start off with the shutter speed at 1/40th of a second, because that's looking quite nice. Obviously we just set the timer. Now the focus mode, I am going to change to wide area AF-L, so it is already on that, so that's what we're going to use here. We're going to use wide area AF. And it's in autofocus. So like we spoke about before, because of the glossy table, you do get that kind of reflection just underneath the product, which I think looks really cool. It's kind of a bit of a different vibe to just shooting on a matte white surface where it would just look like the object's floating. So yeah, we're gonna keep that in there. Now one thing you will obviously notice is you can see the line at the top where the table meets the wall. Now obviously we don't want that, but what you'll see is it happen if I make that brighter, that will obviously blow out that line. So now at 1/20th of a second you can't see it, but the product is looking kind of really overexposed. You can't pick out the details too clearly. on those reflective surfaces and on the label. So I am going to drop that back to 1/30th maybe, where the line's kind of slightly faded, but we're still retaining quite a lot of the detail on the product. Now we're actually going to sort that line out in post-production afterwards. So now we've kind of got our settings dialed in, we're almost ready to take the photo. Now, one thing I will always do is just grab the lights and actually move them around. So as I twist this light from left to right, you'll obviously see that the reflection under the product kind of appears more there as I point the light more towards the wall, away from the product. And the more I point the light towards the product, it's kind of gonna blow out those shadows in the reflection, so we're not gonna see that as much. Now I kind of want the reflection in this shot, so I am gonna angle the light slightly towards the wall like that. So I'm happy with the amount of reflection we've got. There's not too much shadow that I don't want. So yeah, that's where I'm going to leave the light for now. Now the next thing is obviously to make sure you've got the product sitting how you want it. I'm kind of happy with the angle, but I don't like this red cable that is hanging down. So I'm actually just going to hide that around the back. So that looks a lot better and a lot cleaner. So now we're basically ready to shoot the photo, but as I come back to have a look, I'm kind of looking at it and I think that the label is kind of still a little bit blown out. So I am actually going to adjust the shutter speed slightly to 1/40th, and now that's made the shadow slightly darker. So again, I'm just going to twist the lights. I'm happy with that. And we're going to go with that, and we can always adjust things, the shadows, and raise the shadows slightly in post-production, but we don't want to do too much post-production because that's obviously added time. So the more we can do in camera now, the better the shot is going to be and the more time we're going to save. So now I'm happy with that. I'm going to make sure my focus square is in the center of the product. So I'm going to hit the shutter. Going to stop wobbling, take 2 seconds, and it's taken a lovely shot. So now if I go and look at that shot, we can zoom right in and look around here and make sure that everything is in focus before we move on from that point. So obviously the front's in focus, the writing on that blue cap is in focus. That back bit there is kind of just out of focus, but I'm kind of happy with that because that is really in the background. So everything that I want in focus is in focus, which is great. So I'm happy with how these are looking in camera. There will be a little bit of touch-up work that I'll do in Adobe Lightroom afterwards, sort of touch up around that line at the top there where the table meets the wall, and maybe slightly boost the contrast so we get more of that shadow, that reflection shadow popping out. But other than that, I'm not going to do too much. Quite pleased with how these are looking in camera. The light is bouncing off it in a really nice way. So yeah, basically that is it. That is a very easy way to get clean looking product photography straight in camera with a little bit of touch-up work afterwards here or there if needs be. But yeah, that wraps it up for this video really. I'm not going to show the touch-up phase in Lightroom in this video because I think that's a whole nother topic, getting into the editing. And there's not actually a great deal of editing to be done on here, so I'm going to save that for another video where I will go through my editing workflow for product photography. But that is going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned a little bit of something about product photography and this nice clean way of getting it, and hopefully you get good results too. So on that note, I will leave it there and I will catch you in the next one.